I'm setting expectations early. This is a no frills, just a read through of the lawsuit of X, formerly known as Twitter, versus their former engineer, Yao Yu, who they said stole lines of code from them to create their own company. Okay, so the nature of the case, it says, after being fired as the head of Twitter's infrastructure optimization and performance IOP team, Yu surreptitiously downloaded 6 million lines of Twitter's, now known as X-Core's, proprietary and confidential source code to external drives in order to launch and benefit her own aptly named company, IOP Systems, built off of her former employees' intellectual property. Among the exfiltrated code were highly specialized proprietary tools developed and perfected by X to optimize the performance of its complex social media platform. This set of internal tools allows X to operate at scale with maximum efficiency and minimal resource expenditure, the very reason for X-Core's value and competitive success. Yu then launched IOP Systems just days after her willful and malicious exfiltration occurred, offering customers services using the same specialized tools. IOP Systems marketed performance-specific monitoring and automated benchmarking tools to improve application runtime behavior so organizations can strike the most cost-effective balance for maximum performance of cloud-hosted applications. Not coincidentally, Yu's IOP team at X-Core had been responsible for developing performance monitoring and benchmarking tools to optimize system responsiveness and resource allocation. Yu knew that these tools and services would be incredibly valuable to others, as they had been to X. And indeed, IOP Systems' website brags that its founders met while working for Twitter, where we saved the company over $100 million for over 5 years. But put plainly, Yu intentionally stole X-Core's trade secrets to benefit herself and IOP Systems. Yu's looting, they're calling it looting, of X-Core capitalized on the shift in ownership and management resulting from Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter just weeks earlier. It is evident that Yu had been planning the launch of IOP Systems for some time, knew exactly the code she would need to take to do it, and saw this as her opportunity to strike. She assumed that with all the changes to personnel, teams, and company structures at X, no one would notice her massive exfiltration of source code. And given her careful planning and execution, no one did, until October 2024, when Yu's former supervisor revealed to X that Yu had bragged about how Yu and other former X-Core colleagues exfiltrated X source code needed to start their own venture, IOP Systems. Yu's former supervisor also highlighted that Yu had made several strange post-termination requests through non-company channels to designate certain internal proprietary data as open source. This prompted an in-depth forensic investigation of Yu's user account activity, which revealed her mass exfiltration of source code and culminated in this lawsuit. It is now clear that Yu stole X's trade secrets to launch IOP Systems and spent the months following her exfiltration trying to convince former coworkers to open source X-Core's other valuable data. Yu's actions to harm X-Core and benefit IOP Systems violated numerous California and federal statutes, including but not limited to 18 U.S.C. 1836, California Penal Code 502, Computer Data Access and Fraud Act, and California Business and Professions Code 17200, unlawful business practices, as well as common law prohibitions against conversion and unjust enrichment. As such, defendants are liable to X for all damage X has sustained, as well as for all profits defendants gained as a direct and proximate result of defendants' violations. X is further entitled to injunctive relief, treble exemplary damages, and attorney's fees and court costs, among other types of relief. So here's what X is presenting as their factual background. They say X formerly Twitter, was founded in or around March 2006 and launched a social media platform in July 2006. Twitter began as a micro-blogging platform for sharing short status updates. Twitter grew rapidly, becoming a major tool for breaking news stories and other information sharing. Elon Musk acquired and became the chief executive officer of Twitter, which was then renamed to X Corp in October 2022. X Corp's business operates in an electronic computer-based environment. The X Corp social media platform exists as the result of millions of lines of code, software protocols, and business decisions, all of which are combined, built upon, and synthesized to maintain the user-facing end product. Over the years, X Corp has expended substantial resources researching and developing its technologies, trade secrets, technical strategies, and business plans related to its social media platform and related services. X Corp has done so through the expenditure of considerable employee work hours and company resources. These efforts have led to numerous innovative features of X Corp's platform, which give X Corp a competitive edge in the crowded social media marketplace. For example, X has developed software tools that allow for more efficient analysis of user data captured by X's platform, which in turn allows for user experience optimization. Also, they automate certain maintenance tasks to reduce the amount of manpower and/or time needed to complete such tasks. Third, they allow for earlier and more reliable detection of potential threats to the system, just to name a few examples. As X Corp's engineers and software developers continue to improve the platform, old code, software protocols, or ways of accomplishing a task become outdated and inefficient. At all times relevant to this action, X Corp employed a team called the Infrastructure Optimization Team, or IOP, which worked on complex technical issues to improve performance and efficiency for the platform. Put another way, the IOP team was empowered to detect outdated systems and operational inefficiencies within X Corp's infrastructure and develop solutions to save X Corp time and money. In order to perform this task, the IOP team developed a set of tools for collecting, storing, and analyzing system performance measurements at each level of core systems, including measurements related to application performance, network speed, computer resource usage, and overall system health. The tools also included dashboards for viewing system performance and for analysis of system slowdowns and failures, and tools for estimating system performance under hypothetical operating conditions. The developed tools were valuable to X Corp both in reducing operating costs and in improving system performance. These analyses also allowed other teams within X Corp to gain valuable insights into the performance of their systems, enabling them to maximize their efficiency. Yu's employment with Twitter. X Corp hired Yu on November 1st, 2010 as a software engineer in its San Francisco, California location. She was promoted in 2011 to a software engineer too. Over time, Yu was promoted to staff software engineer, senior staff software engineer, and lastly in 2017 as the principal software engineer in the Redbird section of the IOP team. Prior to October 2022, X's engineering department had three areas: Goldbird, which was responsible for monetization and advertising; Bluebird, which was responsible for the product; and Redbird, which was responsible for the infrastructure system. Within Redbird were several large organizations, including Platforms, which was responsible for all internal systems such as storage, computing, scheduling, and messaging. Yu's particular team within Redbird determined the amount of cell phone and data center capacity and cloud capacity X Corp needed, as well as optimizing its cloud usage. Yu reported to Sandy Strong, who was Director of Performance Engineering since June of 2022. Yu, as the principal software engineer of Redbird, oversaw several software engineers and one site reliability engineer, including Brian Martin, Rebecca Isaacs, Ji Yang, Sean Lynch, and Mihir Nanavati. Yu's team developed benchmarking tests and analyses for metrics like latency and throughput to optimize system responsiveness and resource allocation. As described more fully below, Yu used her position and the trust and autonomy that came with it to pilfer X Corp's valuable proprietary source code, confidential data, in order to develop and benefit her own personal business venture. The next section is Yu's termination from X. Shortly after the Musk acquisition on November 10th, 2022, Xcore changed its remote work policy and required employees to return to the office. Following the announcement of this policy change, you tweeted to Zoe Schiffer, a journalist with over 100,000 followers who was covering Xcore changes at that time, encouraging Xcore employees not to resign in light of the new policy, but rather force Xcore to fire you. You tweeted at Ms. Schiffer in order to maximize visibility of her post. And y'all can't see it that well because my printer's not that great, but it says, "Don't resign, let him fire you. You gain literally nothing out of a resignation." And that's like the copy of the tweet. And then it says, at the time of her tweet, you had approximately 5,000 followers, and approximately 20% of her followers, or 1,000 people, were current or former Xcore employees. 970 people liked Yu's tweet. 97 people retweeted her tweet, giving her post further visibility and reach. 19 people commented on the tweet, and 19 people saved the tweet. Xcore policy requires that Xcore managers conform to high professional standards, including, among other things, to be ambassadors of Xcore's values and model them in Xcore. Setting a strong ethical tone and building a culture of integrity with managers' teams. Yu's actions calling for employee insubordination undoubtedly fell short of this standard. Accordingly, Xcore terminated Yu's employment on Tuesday, November 15, 2022. On information and belief, Yu orchestrated such a public exit from Xcore in order to create a name for herself, obtain connections to the press, and ultimately stir up publicity for her new venture, IOP Systems, which launched just weeks later. On or around October 18, 2024, X interviewed Yu's former supervisor, Ms. Strong, pertaining to an unrelated legal matter involving Yu. During this interview, Ms. Strong revealed to Xcore that subsequent to Yu's termination, Yu had been making repeated requests to open source certain Xcore data, as well as made comments that she had exfiltrated Xcore source code to benefit her company. If she did that, that's crazy. Why would you do that? According to Ms. Strong, shortly after Yu's termination, Yu began contacting Ms. Strong, asking her to push through a project that had been underway at the time of the Musk acquisition. The aim of the project was to open source certain data logs with the purported goal of educating the broader technology community as to the performance of systems in a company of Xcore's scale. Prior to the Musk acquisition, the project was going through the normal process for approval. Yu wanted Ms. Strong to nudge the project along, claiming that it was simply waiting for someone to sign off on the open source designation. On Sunday, December 18, 2022, Yu was invited to a dinner party at Ms. Strong's house. While there, Yu again asked Ms. Strong to push the open source approvals along and bragged about how she and other former Xcore colleagues had exfiltrated Xcore source code needed to start their own venture, IOP Systems. And IOP was the name of their team at Twitter, and now she has a company named IOP Systems. On December 20th, 2022, Yu messaged Ms. Strong asking her to report back what Shannon says. Ms. Strong was unsure who Shannon was, but assumed, based on their prior dinner party conversation, that Shannon must be the Xcore employee who had been handling approvals regarding the prior open source request. Ms. Strong felt that these continuing inquiries from Yu were inappropriate and made her feel uncomfortable. Ms. Strong did not take any actions to respond to or otherwise push through Yu's open source objectives. However, she believes that Yu was contacting others at X to facilitate these requests as well. Months later, in June 2023, Yu again reached out to Ms. Strong to push the open source project. Ms. Strong continued to ignore these requests. Upon learning of Ms. Strong's revelations in October 2024, X began an investigation into Yu's post-termination activity. X's investigation team eventually identified Yu as the unidentified source for the article Extremely Hardcore by media outlet The Verge. The article, published January 17, 2023 by Zoe Schiffer, Casey Newton, and Alex Heath, featured information regarding X's company-wide layoffs, workplace culture, confidential strategy meeting details, and detail regarding internal communications. X believes that you is quoted throughout the article and that you provided the supposed details on company meetings, potential business strategy, and future design features that Mr. Musk purportedly wanted to see on the platform, etc. Although given the alias Alicia for confidentiality, the gender, occupation, tenure, employment actions, and termination date all match that of you. Most alarming is that according to the article, after her termination, you used the service elevator to sneak into XCOR's San Francisco, California office and purportedly gather personal belongings. XCOR is now concerned that you may have used this trespass to assist in her exfiltration of source code, circumventing XCOR's security measures. Indeed, XCOR's investigation reveals that on December 4th, 2022, perhaps during her time trespassing in X's offices, you proceeded to willfully and maliciously exfiltrate to a USB drive 6 million lines of X's proprietary and confidential source code from her company-issued laptop. You had no legitimate reason to copy X's source code at that time and lacked any authorization to do so. The 6 million lines of source code that you illegally accessed and exfiltrated contained X's trade secrets, and their trade secrets include, without limitation, a set of highly specialized tools used for service efficiency profiling and monitoring performance designed by and proprietary designed by and proprietary to XCOR. Among these tools are continuous host-level profiling daemon that gathers profiling samples at a low frequency and exports them to enable data analysis, a set of scripts that facilitates the capacity planning, Aurora job creation, and monitoring of cache backends, as well as cluster management, a module to convert metric data into a more easily queryable and longer-lasting format, a suite of scripts that are used for internal testing, benchmarking, experimenting, and collecting of data, and configuration files to set up dashboards for monitoring various metrics. XCOR's trade secrets were specifically tailored for supporting XCOR's infrastructure efficiency and were designed for internal use only at XCOR. I'm going to pause real fast just to say that's a lot of damning actions. Like, okay, first of all, to use the company's platform that you're not happy with to put out a message to say, let them fire you. I'm not saying I disagree with the let them fire you part, but that is crazy. But then to be pushing your supervisor to make all this open source all of a sudden, and then you're actually bragging about you're starting your own company and you're trying to get access to this. You're probably asking other employees to also go ahead and push through the approvals. Then they actually have you downloading the stuff from your work laptop to external hard drives. That's crazy. If that was you that interviewed, and she probably did interview with that lady, because that's the same lady she tweeted to say, you know, let them fire you and everything. It's not looking the greatest right now. This was filed December 4th, 2025. So it's fresh. So in case you're wondering, when did this happen? So you see the timeline we're going through of what she did, but the actual filing was filed December 4th, 2025. Okay, back to the reading. So it says XCOR's current understanding of used exfiltration may be just the tip of the iceberg. In the days leading up to her departure from X, you performed multiple Google searches for ways to delete messages. Oh my gosh. I gotta reread this. You performed multiple Google searches for ways to delete messages from her laptop, as well as ways to transfer large amounts of information from her laptop. Oh man. She also connected 3 different USB drives to her laptop on multiple occasions between November 15th, 2022 and December 4th, 2022 for a total of over 1 hour and 40 minutes. Although the operating system on used laptop does not maintain an index of all of the ways that you could have exfiltrated data from her machine, including some of the methods she Googled, it is evident that you had time and opportunity to copy up to several times as much data and code as XCOR was able to confirm from its analysis of her laptop. This is very concerning since Yu's position gave her broad access to XCOR confidential projects and source code repositories. For example, at the time of her departure, her laptop contained copies of almost 1,000 source code repositories, including a large number of Xcore's proprietary and confidential repositories. Later, X also learned that you, on behalf of IOP Systems, and that's the name of the company she started, was a co-author of the research paper Latencyr, Casual Modeling of End-to-End Latency Distributions by Harnessing Distributed Tracing. And it was published at jasony.me, and it says in or around October 30th, 2023. The paper introduces a tool, Latencyr, that can accurately predict end-to-end latency of a complex internet platform such as Xcore's based on trace data. End-to-end latency estimation in web applications is crucial for system operators to foresee the effects of potential changes, helping ensure system stability, optimize cost, and improve user experience. The paper describes the analysis of Twitter trace data. Oh, wow. Her paper is about Twitter's trace data. Okay. To derive some design choices and optimizations that make latency practical, especially from our experiences when dealing with massive trace data at Twitter. These traces were confidential and proprietary to Xcore because they showed significant information about how Xcore systems were configured at the time the traces were recorded, such as network topology, system resource configuration and usage, and system load balancing and performance under stress. Xcore kept these traces confidential because they reveal specifics regarding Xcore's system configuration. Keeping its system configuration secret is an important part of how Xcore enhances security and deters malicious actors. The paper notes at footnote 5 on page 10 that Latencyr is open source and it was at github.com, and the Twitter traces will be released upon legal approval. However, contrary to the statement in footnote 5, the traces were never properly authorized for release by X. Thus, you use confidential and proprietary Xcore data for the publication of this paper that was not yet open source and that she was not authorized to use or publish. On information and belief, you took without authorization and still maintains a copy of the Twitter traces described in the paper and continues to use them through and to the benefit of IOP Systems. I am very curious of the response to this lawsuit, by the way, on her side, because it's not looking good right now. It says the investigation of you also caused Xcore to investigate some of you's team members who helped form IOP Systems, including Brian Martin. Although the forensic information available is limited, it revealed that Martin coordinated with you after his resignation to change one of Xcore's GitHub source code repositories. Martin resigned from Xcore on or about December 7th, 2022, while he was on a pre-existing leave of absence. Accordingly, Martin was not authorized to access any of Xcore's networks, sources, or services after his resignation. Martin, while employed at Xcore, was Xcore's sole maintainer of Xcore's Pelican source code project on Xcore's GitHub account. Only people with specific authorization as a maintainer can make changes to a GitHub repository. In December 2022, and they bolded, after he resigned from Xcore, they made that bold, Martin accessed Xcore's Pelican project on GitHub without permission and misused his prior authorization as maintainer of the project to approve a requested change to the project code from another GitHub user. This change altered the public description of the project and redirected GitHub users and developers of the project to a copy under another account, Pelican-IO. Xcore's investigation has revealed that the request to modify Pelican's description had been submitted by you under her GitHub alias, ThinkingFish. The investigation further revealed that the Pelican-IO account is operated by you and Martin. Martin's actions gave the impression that Xcore had authorized this change and endorsed the new project, when in fact it had not. Martin, under Yu's direction, attempted to hijack Xcore's widely followed Pelican project to the detriment of its ongoing development. Curiously, on January 18th, 2023, Martin accessed and used the Erase Assistant application on his company laptop that he had not yet returned to Xcore. The Erase Assistant is an app that comes pre-installed on certain Apple MacBook laptops like Martin's. It is used to reset the device back to its factory settings, completely clearing the device and removing all user data. Unsurprisingly, the forensic reports of the activity on Martin's laptop that X-Corp commissioned during its investigation came back suspiciously clean, as if all system logs with details of Martin's activity had been intentionally sanitized. On information and belief, Martin erased and thereby spoliated evidence on his company laptop that would have implicated him in Yu's scheme to steal proprietary software and data, or otherwise would have incriminated him. On information and belief, IOP Systems was founded by Yu, Martin, and other former ex-employees in November 2022. IOP Systems' website confirms that the founders met while working for Twitter. IOP Systems was formally incorporated in the state of Delaware on December 20th, 2022. According to IOP Systems' publicly available statements, it maintains a collection of proprietary and open source software tools related to performance monitoring, benchmarking, and designing high-performance software. Specifically, IOP Systems markets performance-specific monitoring and automated benchmarking tools to improve application runtime behavior so organizations can strike the most cost-effective balance for maximum performance of cloud-hosted applications. IOP Systems does so by providing its customers software to help you understand how your software utilizes hardware resources, find optimization opportunities, and make sure your changes perform the way you expect them to. Not coincidentally, Yu's IOP team at X had been responsible for developing performance monitoring and benchmarking tools to optimize system responsiveness and resource allocation. Before I go on, engineers are smart. This is what they do. So had she not tried to pressure her supervisor into pushing something to approval to be open source that she just happened to be working on and she was leaving, had she not been working with Martin to do that GitHub repository thing, had she not tweeted that journalist, all these things, had she not, it's not uncommon that someone that is very smart and can write code leaves a big company to run their own smaller company because they're leaving with that knowledge anyway. But not this way. It says, at the time Yu departed from X-Corp, her team was working on projects to expand X-Corp's capabilities in areas related to system performance metrics, observation, monitoring, and analytics. X-Corp's trade secrets that Yu willfully and maliciously exfiltrated included her team's in-progress work on proprietary X-Corp tools critical to these projects. As such, X-Corp's trade secrets would have been unavailable to and extremely valuable to anyone planning to do business in the systems engineering space. On information and belief, IOP Systems uses X's valuable trade secrets for a competitive advantage in this space, shortcutting the need to spend the millions of dollars on development and years of engineering effort that X had expended. Moreover, Yu knew that the tools comprising X's trade secrets and the services they would allow IOP Systems to provide would be incredibly valuable to others as they had been to X. Indeed, Yu has publicly confirmed that over the course of 5 years, her team, many of whom are now founding members of IOP Systems, saved Twitter over $100 million, making clear that the X-Corp trade secrets she stole and made available to IOP Systems are highly valuable. To access X-Corp's network, an employee first must be pre-approved and granted access by X-Corp. X-Corp uses multi-layered network security in order to protect its valuable source code. X's source code is stored in both internal and external repositories, with their open source code residing on GitHub. The X-Corp internal repositories can only be accessed by X-Corp employees who have both a username and password that grants access to the servers and a file called a token that is unique to the employee username and necessary to decrypt information received from X-Corp's code repository. Even then, X's code repository cannot be accessed using normal internet or network connections. Instead, a user must connect from one of X's whitelisted network locations. Attempts to connect from all other locations will be rejected. Thus, when employees work remotely, they must first connect to X's offices through a virtual private network or VPN using a username, password, and multi-factor authentication device that is unique to each employee. Moreover, all of these security layers operate in tandem, so an intruder cannot access the code without somehow obtaining VPN credentials to log into the code repository, and a copy of the token file that matches those credentials. Simply stealing a single password would not work. Moreover, access to X proprietary repositories is granted only to individual employees or teams within the company on a need-to-know basis. So not everyone has that. The file systems of all X laptops are fully encrypted, ensuring that the information stored on the machines is inaccessible without proper authentication. In the course and scope of her duties as a principal software engineer of Redbird, Yu was provided with and had access to confidential and proprietary X information, including, but not limited to, X's most important and fundamental source code, i.e., source code which enables the entire platform to run efficiently. At no time did Yu request nor receive any waiver of or exception to her obligations of confidentiality to X. Additionally, Yu never requested and X never gave her any consent, permission, approval, or authorization to take, retain, or use any confidential and proprietary information for any purpose other than the limited purpose for which it was made available to her in the performance of her duties to X during her employment. Moreover, any consent, permission, approval, or authorization you ever had access to confidential proprietary X-Core information during the course of her employment ended immediately upon her termination. And now we're just down to the causes of action of what they're filing against Yu and John Doe's 1 through 10. So it says, trade secret misappropriation, Yu and the company IOP Systems. The second cause of action, let me see. I'm not going to repeat the causes of action, like the details, because most of it's detailed in there. Second cause of action, violation of California Penal Code 502, and that's specifically to Yu individually. Third cause of action, conversion, Yu and the company that she has, IOP System. Fourth cause of action, unjust enrichment, the company IOP Systems. And fifth cause of action, unlawful, unfair, fraudulent business practices, Yu and IOP Systems. And they say that entitlement to judgment and prayer for relief. It says, X-Core respectfully prays for judgment against defendants as follows. For preliminary and permanent injunctive relief requiring Yu, IOP Systems, and all persons or entities acting in concert or participation with them to refrain from obtaining, reviewing, using, or transmitting or disclosing any of X's trade secrets and other confidential proprietary data, traces, and source code. Provide a list of all materials Yu removed from X-Core, including all dates that such items were taken. Provide a list of all individuals to whom Yu or IOP Systems have disclosed each item on the inventory, including the date of transmission. Provide a written statement identifying all personal locations, personal devices, personal accounts, or personal storage media, whether physical or electronic, where any X-Core trade secrets and other confidential and proprietary data, traces, and source code belonging to X-Core are or have been stored, maintained, or accessed. And, deliver to X-Core each item on the inventory, including any copies and or summaries thereof, still in Yu's or IOP Systems possession, custody, or control, that X-Core recovers from Yu and IOP Systems jointly and severally an amount equal to the damages it has incurred as a result of Yu's actions, including punitive damages for her intentional actions to be determined at trial, for disgorgement of defendants' wrongfully acquired profits, for recovery of attorney's fees, costs, and expenses incurred in this action, that all costs of this action be taxed to defendants, and that the court grant all such other and further relief that the court deems just and proper. She's going to have to settle I don't see how they would drop this. 6 million lines of code. And then the way that she went about it. Hey, y'all. Hey, Baby Peaches, Janetta, Linda Gamble. Hey, Sharon, Reen Bass. I think I saw Mama V. Yep. Hey, Mama V. So, yeah. You're going against Twitter. She was bold to tweet on Twitter's platform, anything against the company. That's the company you work for. Don't do it on their platform. Then you're trying to get stuff open sourced and approved. You're pressuring your supervisor. Then you're over here messing with GitHub, and then the other person that allowed you to do stuff in GitHub is also now working for the company y'all started together. I don't know. I don't know if we'll know how this ends, but I don't see it ending well for her, because that's a lot. That's a lot. And then you're Googling how to erase messages. On your company laptop, you're Googling how to erase messages. It's crazy. Sometimes people be so smart they dumb. Because she's smart. She writes code. She's a software engineer. I got it. But some of those common sense actions just don't flow. Then you bragging about starting a company that does. Then you name your company after the same name of your team at Twitter. Y'all. Okay, I don't know if you made it through that whole thing, but let me know what y'all think. I'm going to go ahead and get ready because I got to go to work tomorrow. So, yeah. All right, y'all. Talk to you later. Thank you for hanging in there with me. Bye.